healthy. So if I'm going to be unhealthy, I got to go all the way. Board members and staff, I just want to give you all a heads up. I'm going to delay the start of the meeting by 5 minutes. I want to give everyone time to get in their respective places and be comfortable. So let's just enjoy, all right? Good evening, everyone. The special school board meeting for Suffolk City Public Schools will now be called to order. At this time, we will ask everyone to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will have our division school mission statement read by Vice Chair Heather Howe.
The mission of Suffolk Public Schools is to produce 21st century learners that will become productive citizens in society, foster a dynamic, safe, and nurturing learning environment, partner with school community for the benefit of students and staff, strengthen the school division by employing a highly qualified and diverse staff, effectively and efficiently manage capital and human resources, and effectively communicate to increase community investment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Howe. As a matter of fact, we could have kept it in your hands for a little while longer. At this time, we will have our Finance Committee report, once again by our Vice Chair, Board Member Heather Howe.
Thank you, Board Chair Riddick. Our Finance Committee met on January 24th, 2023 at John F. Kennedy Middle School, and in attendance were Chairman Riddick and myself, Dr. Gordon, and Wendy Forsman, the Chief Financial Officer, as well as folks that participated from the community, and a representative from Cherry Beckert attended as well. To start the meeting, Mr. Ray Melendez from Cherry Beckert gave us an overview of the process that they use to audit all of the funds in the school division, including the activity funds as well. And he described it as a process, a test of the processes in place to make sure that the way that we are reporting, filing, and recording information is solid and not prone to error or misuse, if you will. He stated that the SPS audit had produced no comments, no results there, which means there was no problem found in their testing of our processes. Mr. Riddick and I each asked questions about the purchase card program as a reflection of what we've been hearing from the community and those that we represent. Sorry about that. Mr. Melendez responded that there were no issues that he could find with the purchase card program. Mr. Riddick then asked about any concerns or any hint of fraud or anything of the like in our audit, in our reporting, and Mr. Melendez responded that it wasn't designed specifically to detect fraud, but rather flags concerning items that would lead to further digging, and he expressed that there was no flag, no concern, nothing that would lead them to believe any further investigating needed to be done, any concerns about fraud from that angle. I specifically asked about a forensic audit because that term's been tossed around and expressed an interest in the community quite a bit. And while Mr. Melendez explained he doesn't specifically conduct a forensic audit, that is not the department that he works for in his firm. He did state that he's worked in several states for 10 years and he's never had any experience where something came to light that required a forensic audit, because I asked him what sort of thing would lead a person to request that. And he said in his experience, those requests would come if something they found in their initial audit was a flag for any concern at all. And as I stated before, they had no concerns, no comments for SPS through their auditing process. So with those questions that Mr. Riddick and I asked about the purchase cards, about a forensic audit, we expressed the concern in the community, in the pockets of the community that have been communicated to us about the audit, and we just wanted to get it clear on the record that this firm, Mr. Melendez, Cherry Beckert, has found no problem with our books at all and found no reason to send it off for someone with forensic audit experience to pursue. With that, Mr. Melendez then moved into the results of the fiscal year 2022 audit and again stated there no comment, unmodified, means that there was nothing that needed to be corrected or pursued in the audit that they did. Ms. Forsman then went over various types of audits that the school division has to do for the state for their reporting. There are multiple layers of reporting that are done. Of course, the annual external audit by Cherry Beckert. There's audits of food and nutritional services. Grant programs have ongoing reporting to the state for those grant funds to keep flowing to us. Title I specifically is layers upon layers upon layers of reporting and paperwork. And then, of course, the CARES Act funds are reported quarterly. Ms. Forsman very thoroughly went through the processes of auditing and reporting that she and her team have to do monthly, quarterly, yearly, and all the layers that are in place for keeping our books straight, keeping our financial records straight. And then finally, she gave an overview, Ms. Forsman gave an overview of the various financial statements that are in the comprehensive annual, the city annual comprehensive financial report, and gave us just a touch of an explanation how to interpret those because, for example, our buildings, our property are our assets, but then on the city's side, they are what you would call a debt or a burden. So we have to do the auditing process with them, or it looks like we're doing super amazing and the city is going under. So it has to go hand in hand so that it's reported accurately. I'm hoping I'm describing this accurately. I'm looking at Ms. Forsman and I'm sweating a little bit because this is very detailed and very complicated, and she has walked me through it more than once. So financial reporting is its own beast, if you will. And so it does take the eyes and the expertise of someone trained in that to help us understand what we're seeing, because it may not look like what our budgets look like at home or how we do things in our own checks and balances and reporting, because there's so many layers to it. But there are lots of eyes on our financial reports. I think that gives the gist of it. Board Chair Riddick, sorry for going over.
Thank you so much. As you all have heard, that it was a very in-depth Finance Committee meeting. I want to say hats off to Suffolk Public Schools Finance team, especially Ms. Wendy Forsman, because it is not easy to do all of that on top of taking on all of the inquiries, making sure you don't miss a penny when it comes to budgeting and fulfilling budget requests. And Suffolk Public Schools is a large school division. And it takes a lot of attention to detail. And it is no secret that our finance department is not fully staffed. So they're doing almost double the workload, and we have been successful at 9 years of no comments. So I'm going to take the risk here and do this. And nobody know that I'm going to do this, and I like the element of surprise. It has been vetted. It has been tried. Can we leave this narrative of misappropriation alone? Let's move forward. The more we keep tying our staff hands into these types of situations when you've had 9 years of people saying that it's nothing wrong, we're not able to get the business of the division done. And I'm going to say this as well, and I know some people may not want to hear it, but it's the truth. When you're always attacking the integrity of your own division, future employees look at that, and it is that reason that we still have vacancies in our finance department. No one wants to volunteer to be ridiculed, to be drug on Facebook. No one wants that. And it's a shortage of CPAs, and I'm not talking about, the personal care assistance group. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about certified public accountants. There's a shortage across the country. Our department could easily go to the private sector and make way more. Let's lighten the load and let's move forward. The report has came. If anyone wants to see the report, could you tell them where to find it at?
Yes, sir. So the full minutes The minutes for that meeting are listed under, go to spsk12.net, click on the school board tab, and then the drop-down menu will say minutes, click on minutes, then you click on the 2022-23 school year, and the very first one that you should see is January 24th, the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you so much. It's posted, it's there, the receipts, the proof is in the pudding. We want to move forward to achieving great things. And with that being said, without further ado, we're going to move on to our next item of new business, and that's the superintendent's proposed budget for 23-24 school year. Dr. Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. I'm going to be joined by our Chief Financial Officer, Wendy Forsman. I'm going to make my way to the podium for the presentation, and I will remain there through any board member questions they may have at the end. Right. All right, good evening, everyone. Chair Riddick, Vice Chair Howell, board members, Mr. Waller, and our staff, and of course, all of our 14,432 students, 95,000 residents here in the city of Suffolk. As what has become tradition here, when it comes to the superintendent's proposed budget for each year, we always try to make sure that we are building upon everything that we've done in the past, as well as continue to get feedback. And I wanted to take some time to make sure that I explain to our school community the process that we take to come to the common themes that you will be seeing will be presented tonight. Beginning the second week of school is when our budget process actually begins. And we actually have surveys that go out to all of our schools, our department heads, et cetera, getting feedback from all staff. And our entire team at the superintendent's cabinets level, we actually take a look at things, look for common themes very similar to a research paper. During the month of December, we also get community feedback for them to have the opportunity to inform us of what they would like to see within the budget. During that same time frame, we also begin to communicate with our school board, who sends information to our school board clerk, Ms. Gardner, on what they would like to see in the budget. And those are the types of things that the chiefs and I end up kind of sifting through to figure out what we can do as we're separating the wants from the needs, while also making sure that we're following the goals of our new strategic plan and the goals that we're actually seeing and dealing with the needs of the school division. So with that being said, as I mentioned previously, school administrators in September, school-based staff in September and October, not only is it the surveys that they send through, but we also have to take the time to be able to look through those surveys. Public stakeholders, the first one that I mentioned was in December. The next time the public will have an opportunity to comment will be at our next school board meeting in March 9th. That gives them an opportunity to be able to review what is being proposed tonight. And that will also allow the school board, which will end up calling a special meeting later on that month after they've had a chance to hear from the public once more to determine if there are any concerns, any additions to the budget. Directors and coordinators in November, as we mentioned, chief and the superintendent, this was basically what we spent almost the entire month of December, as well as when we returned for January. And then school board members, you gave us your feedback in January. We always like to wait, of course, until after the organizational meeting, since we have new school board members that are on board. So here were the common themes that we discovered. Safety of students and staff, as we have discussed many times before, keeping our students and staff safe is always our top priority. Educating them is actually second. And you all know that Suffolk Public Schools has done several things to be proactive when it comes to the safety of our schools. A consistent theme that we've always talked about is raises in pay. And that is something that's probably always going to be the theme in every educational endeavor. When those members of the school board actually hired me and I started on October 14th, 2019, there were two things I really promised the school board I was going to focus on. The first one was our talent, which means increasing the pay. The second was our infrastructure. We really had to do some things to take a hard look at our facilities, our innovation, technology, and how our staff and students were able to use those on a day-to-day basis. Literacy and reading, 4 of our board members mentioned that. And that's been the focus of us ever since that we've started this entire process under the current administration. And student achievement growth, that was across the board with our departments, our community, our school board members, and our staff. As I mentioned previously, that is the second most important thing that we actually do in our schools. And especially coming out of the pandemic, this is something that we're going to continue to focus on. You know, Dr. Branch's T&L team, we had done away with the term of learning loss and really began to focus on accelerated learning, which is part of the reason why you saw a 21% increase in math scores last year. So here is the official theme of the 23-24 budget, and that is safety, security, and support. And we always try to make sure that we find themes that relate, but we also want to be able to keep it simple so that if anyone ever has any questions, they can directly refer back to this PowerPoint as well as other opportunities that we'll have to communicate with the public in the very near future. I did want to take the time just to remind our school community of some of the initiatives and things that we actually did this fiscal year. We were proactive in purchasing our 25 metal detectors, and these were the ones that were very mobile. We actually have those metal detectors that are actually being used here at our school board meetings. Under Dr. Brown and Dave LaFave has been our point person for this, we've also purchased additional wands to be used at all levels and sporting events. We also purchased 112 new radios for schools. Some of those were because radios were at the end of life. The main reason, however, is we wanted to be able to increase our opportunity for communication. We purchased 8,500 clear book bags. Originally, we purchased 5,500 for our secondary schools. And this was an initiative that is really spread throughout the entire country, as we were one of the first school divisions in the country to be able to do that. And we did that on a volunteer basis. And we mainly did that because we knew we were going to increase our metal detector checks. And we wanted to use the clear book bags as an incentive for kids to be able to go through a second line to help to expedite the process. 3,000 of those book bags were also purchased and distributed to our elementary schools on a volunteer basis last week. They're a little bit smaller, but they still come in the same colors of your trim of red, blue, black, and green, which we think would be some of their favorite colors. To assist with the fact that we still had some schools that were using classrooms for lunch, as well as to try to still have some social distancing going on, because as we know, we are currently now in the red-orange for COVID protocols in the city. We had 25 lunchroom monitors that we're going to use on a temporary basis. This is why you see 1 year on that slide. And based on the slide presentation that Dr. Brown and Mr. Boone did in November, we also added 14 instructional behavioral support positions at our secondary schools. Now, this was based on discipline infraction data, but I do not want our school community to get confused thinking that all of a sudden there was something new that was going on. This discipline infraction data was actually based on the enrollment of our top 5 schools. So, of course, it was going to be our 3 high schools, Kings Fork Middle School and Colonel Fred Cherry, because those are the 5 schools that have more kids. But we also wanted to use this new position of these instructional behavioral support positions to be the brainchild for a new position that we want to create for next year. So here is the core foundational topic. We think this is something that has never been done before, and you all that have gotten to know me know that I'm really all about first. We want to be able to say that in Suffolk Public Schools, if you come to teach for us, there are no duties for teachers. Ms. Jessica Avery, our Director of Human Resources, and Diane Whiting are actually on a recruiting trip right now with this mantra intact. Teachers will come to SPS just to teach. Now, we know of some other school divisions that have done this at the secondary level only, but no one has done it K through 12. And when we have presented this to our elementary schools, we could literally see in our Google Meet and Zoom sessions that Ms. Gardner set up for us, that elementary teachers were cheering. Because these new positions, the safety, security, and support monitors, the S3s, will take care of before school duty, hallway support, cafeteria duty, recess duty elementary teachers, as well as after school duty. We're going to give our elementary staff an opportunity to have planning time that's very similar to what we see at the secondary level. We also want to make sure that our secondary staff has the opportunity, and everybody, to have unencumbered planning time, so that you can actually spend time working on what is necessary to create your lesson plans, plus spending a lot of time in your professional learning communities. These were the things that was loud and clear from the feedback we got from the staff, and it was also something that we had been wanting to do for a while, but we had to wait until after the pandemic was over. Now, some things that we know are going to be staples of this presentation and of our budget for next year is we're going to go ahead and convert some of our part-time safety monitors into full-time at the high schools. We have about 3 positions where that is like that. One of the things that's been a huge focus of our Chief Financial Officer, Wendy Forsman, is to eliminate some of these part-time positions. We've had to do this in the past because of the recession, because of budget limitations, but we want to be able to have full-time people in our buildings to do a better job of building relationships with our kids and our families and school community. So these part-time safety monitors becoming full-time monitors at our high schools is something that's definitely going to remain. In the past, we've already had reading specialists, but it actually was on our Title I budget. But our legislation in Richmond has made a change where they are actually saying this now needs to be part of your operating budget. So we're going to move this off of the Title I budget and putting on our operating budget. And currently now during crossover, there's actually some discussion of expanding this from K through 5 through K through 8. So the number may actually grow. This is the part of the reason why you don't have a number up there, because we didn't want to be able to say, we'll have 5, we'll have 10. It could be 25, it could be 11. These are some of the things that we're going to continue to work with as legislation actually ends in Richmond. We also wanted to make sure that all of our elementary schools had a full-time in-school suspension monitor. We had 3 schools that were part-time. This was something that we wanted to be able to phase in over time, because up until 2 years ago, none of our elementary schools had ISS people. It was actually being conducted by a teacher assistant. So we wanted to be consistent across the board, pre-K through 12 when it comes to in-school suspension. We are also going to add teacher assistant positions. Our school board is well aware that we had 4 schools that barely missed accreditation this year. And those schools, if we have any for next year, will be the schools that we're going to add these teacher assistant positions to. This not only will help with instruction, it'll help with classroom management. It will also help us to be able to have small groups when we're doing our instructional collaboration. It'll also be able to help us to pull out for small group instruction out in the hall, have other opportunities to give the kids the enrichment and remediation they need. We haven't set a number for this yet, because we're hoping that all of our schools are going to be accredited next year. But under the guidance of Ms. Catherine Pichon, our Director of Elementary Leadership, she has created metrics that will allow us to be able to look at this per grade level as well as per subject, specifically at the elementary level. These are some of the things that we want to make sure that we're putting as many instructional supports in place for our schools, which was also a core foundational item that the school board had mentioned during your feedback to us for budget development. So I am very, very proud of what you see here on this slide. Every year since I've been here, I made a promise to all 2,300 and now 24 of our staff members, we are going to raise your pay. You have to be able to raise your pay to retain the talent. So even during the years when the pandemic was going on, Wendy Forsman, being the financial guru that she is, still found a way to provide our staff with a cost of living adjustment. Even though that number may have been small, we had the opportunity to make some gains. In 2019, when I began, Suffolk Public Schools was 9th out of 12 school divisions when it came to salary scales. Last year, we were 4th. We were actually 3rd for about 6 days until another rival school division went back after they saw our scale was better. So next year, we're proposing a $53,000 starting salary, ceiling at $85,706 for our teachers. As you can see, over 5 years, we've had a 22.8% increase. Now, I need to be honest and inform our school community and our board that the governor has mandated that everyone will have a 5% increase. But we want to do more than that. We believe that this is one of the great ways for us to be able to recruit and retain our talent here in Suffolk Public Schools, is to pay them something that is competitive within the region. And that has been a focus of ours since we've began, and will continue to be a focus to move forward. I've had a conversation with the Employee Association of Suffolk. One of their leaders is here, and they don't even ask anymore about teacher raises because they know we're going to do it. They know that we're going to do it because we have the trust of our staff, and we have already proven that we keep our promises when it comes to compensating them for what they're worth. For bus drivers, I know Mr. Riddick's going to be extremely excited about this, but he will not be more excited than Mr. Kevin Privet, our Director of Transportation. We are going to increase the starting salary to our bus drivers to $19 an hour. The research that Ms. Forsman has done has really proven that we don't always lose our bus drivers to other school divisions. We've actually lost a significant percentage to the private sector, where the pay ranges have been between $19 to $21 an hour. So you can see right here, this employee group, we're proposing the highest percentage of any employee group to raise that to 23% to $19 an hour. A 5-year increase of 44.3%. We can't educate our kids if we can't get them there. Our parents can't relax if we can't get them home. And I can tell you something right now, it is the goal to be able to eliminate the double runs, which will make all of our elementary staff so happy. That is our plan. That is our plan. We believe that this $19 an hour, with other incentives such as perfect attendance, with other incentives such as not having any accidents, and being able to recruit other drivers are going to be some things that's going to allow us to finally be fully staffed. I think in the 3.5 years that I've been here, I think we've been fully staffed in transportation for a total of 3 months. There's been a lot of changeover when it comes to some of our drivers. We want to be able to lock them in with what we believe is one of the higher salaries and rates in the region. Wendy Forsman also had a 3-year phase-in for support staff, and we wanted to revise the pay scale there to create these pay bands. We also knew, as I just mentioned last year we actually revised the final part of the support staff scale as well as administration. And you see here, support staff is also going to get the 5% increase. Once again, this is mandated, but we also believe that it is due. This is the whole goal about making sure that SPS stays competitive. I mentioned that teachers were 9th when I got here, administrators were 10th. Now we're in that 3-4 range. And we have to remain there. We have to remain there. You also can see that the state minimum wage is $12. The lowest salary wage that we'll be paying folks on our support scale is $15.11. This minimum wage of $12 that moves to $15 doesn't happen until 2026. We are already there. We were there last year in 2022. You have to be proactive when it comes to creating your budget. You have to have great foresight and the institutional knowledge that the budget and finance team knows, plus the insight that we get from Dr. Brooks Buck and Ms. Jenkins staying close to our legislators, allows us to be able to plan accordingly. And so we are always going to continue to increase our wages so we never have to worry about that minimum wage threshold again. Remember, a few years ago, we had folks that were making $9.65 an hour. And you can see the gains that we've made over the last few years. So to sum this up, there are going to be some additional positions. That reading specialist, you can see the move over from Title I. Right now, we have that earmarked at 11. That's 1 for every one of our elementary schools. That number may change depending on what you see in Richmond. We all have some new teachers that are coming on board. We're starting our new pathway. Remember, the Center for Performing and Production Arts was really a 3-year phase-in. So now we have to have an additional CPPA teacher. We also have a new Navy cadet because we want to start a Navy JROTC program at Kings Fork High School. I want to put into the board's ear right now, we are going to start to look at our JROTC programs pretty similar to specialty centers. You know, in the past it's been Army. Now we're going to have Army and Navy. And these are the things that we want to be able to do to give our kids more choices and more options. And we have to pay for the Navy Cadet program for a few years because we have to prove to the Navy that we can sustain the program. Makes sense. It's really all a part of that investment. And ladies and gentlemen, because we have new technology coming on board, because we have now put in whiteboards in every classroom that we have here in SPS, yes, I need an additional, or actually specifically John Littlefield needs an additional instructional technology resource teacher. I'm going to add technology positions every year because that's really part of the innovation that we've been talking about here in Suffolk Public Schools. Teachers assistants, right now we got an earmarked at 10. When Ms. Forsman is building this budget, she always builds this budget on a conservative basis. We put things in here that we believe that we can afford. And ladies and gentlemen, everything that you see on the screen is a need. It is not a want. It is a need. And one of the things that we have to make sure that our school community understands is that the needs of our children and the needs of our staff have changed. And they have changed significantly over the last 2 years. The social emotional learning work that we do for students, guess what? We had to do it for staff as well. These are some of the things that we're looking at because of those needs, of some of the adjustments that had to be made for some kids who came into their educational journeys while the pandemic was going on. There is still work to be done. You can see up here the safety, security, and support, AKA the S3s. Right now we're earmarking 28. I hope that number goes up. I hope that number goes up. Because one of the things I need to make sure that our entire school community understands, I'm going to reinforce this even more tomorrow when we do the Facebook Live, is that everybody, every school division, the 132 in Virginia, for example, are all doing the same things when it comes to safety and security. Everybody's buying metal detectors. More and more now are buying clear book bags because, you know, we started that trend. But no one is thinking outside the box about the mixture. We're putting boots on the ground. We're putting people that can go into the classrooms, go into the bathrooms, are outside with your children for crossing guards. And the training they're going to be put through from Dr. Brown's team is going to be very similar to what we do with our school security officers. We're going to make sure that we set their contracts up so they can have additional professional learning throughout the entire year. No one has this position. I bet you after we do it, a couple of other school divisions will, because that seems to be the trend. But the safety, security, and support, we've had interviews. Dr. Bird's team, Dr. Lee, and Ms. Pichon contacted and communicated with every principal. And we asked them, how many people do you have on duty on the first floor? How many people do you have on duty on the second floor? How many do you have that are normally outside of recess at one time? How many people are normally at the cafeteria at one time? And this is how we generated the number. Now, this number right here may mean, if it stays at 28, that we may have to make some adjustments, because that's on the low end. This is a part of the reason why I'm stating to the board right now, I hope this number goes up. These are the things that we want to be able to include. I'm hoping we can get this at least 10 to 15 more. Because I want to make sure, if we're going to be serious about taking away the duties from teachers, I want to do it for all year. Not just for 9 weeks or a semester. We want to be able to do it for all year. In-school suspensions, we talked about that, making that full-time. That's at the elementary level. Safety monitors to full-time. And remember, the reason you see those fractions is because this includes benefits, okay? Anytime you do full-time, it's a little bit more money, right? That's at the high school level. Technology technician is brand new, and then we have a little bit of a change for a trades part-time being removed. So we're looking at 56.4 positions as it stands, but remember, half of that are the F3s, safety, security, and support. And again, I hope that number does have the opportunity to go up. So at this time, I'm going to transition you all into the nuts and bolts, as Ms. Forsman is going to explain to you the different pots of money, the percentages that we get from the feds, the state, and our locality, as well as how much money we're going to ask from our locality in order to make this plan work. Ms. Forsman?
Thank you, sir. All right, good evening. So as Dr. Gordon has wonderfully said, the budget is put together on a conservative basis. The numbers you saw for the staff numbers are basically a set point where we know that we can afford that right now, given that we're working with the governor's proposed budget. We do not know what the General Assembly is going to do, and dependent upon what they do and then what the city does, when we come back finally for an adopted budget, you'll have firm numbers then at that point. Right now, we're still dealing with a lot of unknowns. So with that being said, here are the actual revised and proposed numbers. The actual numbers are those numbers of what we spent last year through June 30th of 22. The revised numbers, and this is important, include the money that was reappropriated to us by the city in September, $397,285. That money was reappropriated, so that number is different than the budget book that was produced as the adopted last year. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. The adopted budget book was done in June. In September, we got more money reappropriated to us, so that number is changed by that number, okay? Then the proposed, and you can see here, the operating fund increased by 6.56%. It's $187.4 million. The grants fund actually goes down. As you know, the CARES Act is sunsetting. We've sunsetted CARES Act 1, we'll sunset CARES Act 2 this coming September, so we won't have a full year of that in next year's budget. And then the following year, you'll see it really go down back to our 16 million range when the CARES Act 3 goes away. So that reduces by 38.66%, almost 40%. And then food services is increased. He had a very good year last year, and he is going to be purchasing some equipment to replace some very old equipment. He's going to be doing some things with our cafeterias that you're going to find very exciting when we get that in. And so that is 13.78% increase. But overall, because of that decrease in the grants fund, it's a reduction of 2.62%. The governor's proposed budget, like we've said, this whole book is based on those numbers of what he proposed back in December, less the mistake that they made. And so basically net of that grocery tax adjustment, you'll see $7.9 million more in the state money. Then for the city money, we're asking for the city to invest an additional $4 million for safety, security, and support. Mostly for the state raise, the portion that's not covered by the state, the bonus, as you'll see in a few minutes, that the whole amount is not covered by the state as it was proposed, and for safety and security. So this is the breakdown of the operating fund and where we receive our revenue. I want to make sure everyone understands where the revenue comes from. The state provides almost 61% of the revenue with $114.2 million. The federal revenue, that's your impact aid and things like that, that money is $1 million. It's 0.58% of the budget, so very small. The city appropriation would be 0.06% at $71.3 million. And then other funds include things like rents from others, tuition from others, sale of textbooks, sale of equipment, those kinds of things. That's a 0.43% of the overall at $806,880. So you can see the breakdown there of the revenue that we receive for the operating fund and the source of it. So highlights from the state funding, just to give you some ideas. I'm not going to go through every single line that went up and down because it was quite a bit, but here are the highlights. There's a 1% salary retention bonus. The state gave us $560,966. Remember that number in a few minutes. The reading specialists have to come onto the operating fund from the Title I fund, 11 of them. At this point, the governor's proposed puts one in every elementary school, so that's why we've chosen 11. As Dr. Gordon said, there is information that they may take that higher. We may have to decide that, but realize that right now what's being proposed is if we hire them, we're only getting a portion for the time that they're hired. So if we have a hard time getting them, we will not receive that money from the state. The increase in the grocery tax hold harmless to $3.1 million. The mistake that the state made was not in this line on their calculation tool, it was in basic aid. They did not reduce basic aid by this amount, so that was inflated. So you'll see in a minute where I've taken that back out. The compensation supplement for this 5% increase that's being required is $3.6 million. The adjustment error in the grocery tax is a minus $2 million. And our average daily membership has gone up. In the past 10 years, 11 years, I've based the budget on 13,800 students on an ADM basis. ADM is average daily membership. In any given time period, you have a certain number of instructional days. You take the totals of the children that came every single one of those days and divide, you get your average daily membership. That number is what the state bases our revenue on every single year. On March 31st, we take a picture of that, and that's what they base our money on every single year. That is up this year by quite a few students. So 14,000, I felt very comfortable moving the budget basis to 14,000 for ADM because of the numbers of students we're seeing this year. So that is an increase, the state revenue increase just by doing that, just by having more children. So I've done that in the budget. I want to make sure you understand that I changed the basis of the budget to 14,000 students. So here's the proposed budget on compensation and benefits. So you can see here that 87, almost 90% of our budget is for compensation and benefits. As you know, we do not set the benefits numbers. The VRS sets that, the state sets that for the retirement, for both groups. Then, of course, you have the FICA, which comes from the federal government. The state sets the group life and the retiree health care cost. Those benefits all cost us money, and that's what you're seeing there. The other thing in benefits that you need to know is workman's comp is part of our benefits. We spend over $1 million a year in workman's compensation claims and what we have to pay people that get hurt on the job. So that's all part of benefits. So almost 90%, 87.27% of our budget. 12% of our budget, 12.73, is operating cost. Operating costs are things like purchase services, equipment, travel, materials. So that's what the 12.73% is. When we look at it a different way, and again, the whole budget book is based on exactly how the state has us report, and these are the categories. Instruction and instructional supports, 75.06% at $170 million. Administration and attendance. Administration remains very low at 2% of the budget, $4.7 million. Health and psychology is $3.2 million or 1.44%. People transportation is $10.2 million or 4.51%. Facilities and maintenance, very large cost to maintain all these old facilities, $19.7 million. That includes utilities, things to keep the building open, repairs that we have to do, painting, sidewalks, you name it, that's in that that number. Maintaining the grounds, $19.7 million or 8.71. Food services, $9.5 million at 4.22% of all funds. And then technology at $8.9 million, it's 3.95%. And technology has three areas within it. One is instruction, one is the technology department, and the third one is administration. So when you look in the book, you will see all three of those, and the three of them together add up to the $8.9 million. So you just have to look at it as a whole when you're doing it this way, but inside the book, we do break it down for you based on what's instruction, what's the technology department itself, and then what's to keep administration running. So here are the expenses, how they worked. Salary increases, almost $8 million of the money went to salary increases. The state bonus, if you remember that number I gave you earlier, $560,000, that bonus is actually going to cost us a little over $1.1 million. Maybe a little more if they decide to raise salaries even more. And then added positions, $2.5 million, for a total of $11.5 million in just people. Operational expenses, you can see here, I'm not going to read these to you, I'm sure you can read them for yourselves, but basically, here are the line items and here are the amounts they went up. Again, more that went up. You'll see equipment additions went down. Purchase services overall went down, equipment replacements went down, fuel parts went down some. We base a lot of this on actual, so you'll see why they go up and down based on the actuals in the actual column. So that total for other operational expenses went up $361,141. However, and I'm doing this because the budget book has it this way, the revised column has that $397,000 in it. So if I take that out of that column in the operating cost, because that's where we put the money. If you remember when the money was reappropriated to us, we put that for sinkholes. Do you remember that? So that went into the operating cost. So I have to take that back out of that because that's not coming to us a second time, correct? So that is $36,344 that it went down as an overall, if you compare it in the budget book. Okay, so I want to make sure we understand that. So personnel cost, $11.5 million. Operation cost, $361,141, total increase of $11.9 million that matches the revenue. Now I'm going to do one more slide because I don't want someone to say it doesn't match the budget book, so I want to make sure everybody understands. $11.9 million is our actual increase. If you compare it in the budget book, you have to take that reappropriation out. So if you look at the budget book and you take last year's, this number for this year for the revised column, less than the column for current year proposed, it's only $11.5 million, and it's because of that reappropriation. So I want to make sure that people understand that. If you're comparing it in the budget book, you're going to see $11.5 million, not the $11.9 million. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, we'll entertain questions.
Board members, just to reiterate our formula for questions, we will allow a board member on this side of the room to ask first, and then we'll rotate to this side. All right? Is there any particular board members who have any questions? There being none, thank you so much for the presentation. What I'm assuming is that all board members are going to go back, chew on this some more, and you may get some emails in the coming days.
Well, we do want to mention that the Ask a Budget question is live. And so if anyone has a question, any board member, any community member, they can go there as well as let us know, and we'll be happy to answer those questions.
You said the Ask the Budget
Ask
question.
a Budget question. It's on the website under Finance, Budget, and at the very bottom it says Ask a Budget question, and you put your question in, it emails it directly to me, and I will respond within 24 hours.
And Mr. Rick, also as a reminder, I will also reiterate many aspects of this tomorrow during the Facebook Live at 3 p.m. I won't go over the entire budget presentation, but we will give some highlights and some overview. And also as a reminder to the board, at your March 9th meeting, we'll be asking for you all to set a date for later on in March to be able to approve the budget before things begin to move to the city.
And additionally, the budget is also located at the central office on the first floor and the seventh floor. It's going to be in every single public library and every single media center at the school level. We also have it online. It will also be under finance budget, so it'll be online, as well as this presentation tonight will be there.
Thank you so much. So citizens who are viewing at home, you have several different methods that you could reach out to our staff to ask questions regarding the budget process, one being online, the other one is via email. The budget books are located at the Suffolk Public Libraries, as well as central office on the first floor and also on the seventh floor, but also at our schools in the media center. We do ask that if you're going to visit our schools, you abide by our visitor guidelines. You're going to have to buzz in the ID and have everything ready to go in. But I would prefer you go to the public library where you could just walk in and get the book. But at this time, with there being no questions from board members, thank you so much for an excellent presentation. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second? The motion has been made by Board Member Brooks Buck and second by Board Member Jenkins. We're going to do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Board members, please vote. Board Member Brittingham?
Yes.
Board Member Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Board Member Byram?
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Slinglove?
Yes.
Vice Chair Howell?
Yes.
Board Chair Riddick?
Yes.
Motion passed.
This meeting is hereby adjourned.